Okay, so I think what we're going to do here is we're going to start by showing everybody some pretty useful things that I've learned through experience on the Avalanche network. If you don't know much about the Avalanche network, I definitely recommend you go out and do some research on it. It is definitely going to be, I think, at the forefront of cryptocurrency in the near future. I mean, the ecosystem is growing very swiftly, and it's great. It's super low gas fees, very swift, and the technology surrounding it is excellent. But this isn't about that. So this I wanted to show you how to use TraderJoe. TraderJoe is the decentralized trading website for on the Avalanche network. It is basically a place where you can go to use your Avalanche token, which is AVAX, and other native tokens on the website. So first thing to start off here for beginners, just remember a couple different things when you're utilizing this website. Make sure, and any website out in the crypto world, make sure you have the right one. And so for this particular walkthrough, remember HTTPS, TraderJoeXYZ.com. If you ever question whether the website is legitimate or not, because you can do a Google search for these things, and you'll find yourself with a bunch of people actually will pay ad money to put their potentially scam website on the top of the list there, so that you potentially click on there and dump your money into it, and it becomes a whole to-do. So I always recommend, so for TraderJoe, the native token is Joe, and you can do this for any of the crypto websites. So go to CoinMarketCap, go out and find the particular native coin, and right here in CoinMarketCap you'll find that it's the website is typically linked here, and when you click on it, it's going to take you to the right spot every time. And then bookmark it. I definitely recommend bookmarking some of these spots, especially if you're going there quite frequently, so you don't have to run into those problems. All right, let's take a look at TraderJoe. So first things first, this does assume you have MetaMask or some sort of wallet set up. I use MetaMask, and it also has the the Avalanche network added to the network list here. Now, if you don't know how to do that, or you could easily go out to add AVAX to MetaMask. And you can click on the first one here from the actual Avalanche website, and it'll walk you through step by step how to do it, how to add the network. And then same for if you need to know how to get AVAX tokens into your MetaMask. You gotta essentially buy them on put US dollars into or whatever currency you're used to trading with, into an exchange, and buy some sort of cryptocurrency, and either swap it, but eventually send it to your Avalanche Network's wallet. So this tutorial does not cover any of that stuff. This assumes you know how to do that stuff already. If you don't know how to do that stuff, you really should go start from the basics, and really look up some of that information. So anyway, this again, those are the assumptions I put in place. Let's go through the website here quick, and I'll explain some of these here tabs, and what they are, and then we're going to focus mainly on the lend and stake tabs, because those are the ones I want to show you. Some interesting things you could do if you're holding your AVAX token, or let's say, I'll run you through a few scenarios and what we can do. So trade tab, pretty simple. You put one token in, you get another token out. These are all AVAX Avalanche Network tokens. So if you have AVAX, or maybe you have one of these other ones that are native on the blockchain, and you can get out whatever you want. That's on this list essentially. You can get some of this grow. Apparently, I have some. You can get BNB. You can get this thing called Craft, which is pretty new. You can get Joe, which is this native token. All these things. MIM, which is a stable coin. A lot of different stable coins on here. And take note that like DAI, that's a stable coin, but this is DAI.e, which is the Avalanche network version of it. So that's all it is. Pretty simple as to what they are. Now, that being said, if you swap for one of these down here, let's say AVAX or BiFi, it doesn't really matter what it is. You'll notice this down here changes it. So you can add the token to your wallet so it shows up. So for example, Grow, I can add Grow to my token. You'll get a message, right? And now the reason I didn't know I have any because I never added it, right? So here it is now, down here, and it'll show you your balance. So if you're ever looking in your MetaMask and you don't see the token in your assets, well, that's because most likely you didn't add the token to the actual your wallet. So that's all that is. A good way of swapping between different tokens. Pool. So these are liquidity pools. We're not going to dive too deeply into these, but the neat thing about these is you can provide liquidity to any of these things here. Let's say this. Let's choose one like, I don't know, melt time. Okay, melt and AVAX. So here's one. If I were to have, let's click on it. I would add liquidity. So if I had a bunch of melt in my wallet and I had a bunch of AVAX in my wallet, you add them to the pool in equal value. And so let's say I would put $100 worth of melt. Okay, I would have to put $100 worth of AVAX into the pool together. So it would be a $200 investment, and it would be in however many tokens that would $100 of each would be. You'd enter it and add it to the liquidity pool, and you would get a receipt token, an LP token, a liquidity provider token, as kind of your receipt. That you're providing liquidity, and then as you provide liquidity and people do swaps in the trade, right? When they do these trades, anytime you do these swaps here, there's actually a fee that's charged, and that fee is given back to the user, to the liquidity providers, in the form of rewards. So in this particular case, over time, this adds you get a 19.88% reward APR for providing this particular liquidity. Now this changes over time based on how much liquidity is in the pool, the volume, and the amount of fees that are collected, of course. So if people aren't, if liquidity isn't needed, people aren't buying it or swapping for it, and they're not generating fees, the APR is going to go down naturally because they don't have the fees to give to you. But if it's really popular and people are they can't even keep it, you'll notice this APR, the liquidity pool can't even keep it. You'll notice this APR goes up. So this is nice because you get your liquidity token. All right. So remember that you get when you add liquidity here, you generate this reward, but you also get that receipt token. All right, and it'll show up in your wallet. I don't know if you noticed, so like JLP, that was a liquidity token at one point. I don't have any now, but that's all it was, right? You get this token, so that when you go to remove your liquidity and get your money back that you put in, you'll actually give up that token, okay, and you'll get back an equivalent amount of melt and AVAX that you kind of put in. So anyway, we're not going to go any further into this. Just know that you get that liquidity token, and there are risks involved with this, of course. If you don't know anything about the risks involved with providing liquidity, I would suggest you look up what those risks are, and really try to understand what impermanent loss is, and some of the risks of providing liquidity. I traditionally don't do a lot of this. But if you did, you can get a nice fat APR for some of these things for doing it. Plus, you get the receipt token, which you can use to actually go over here to farm and stake. So in this particular case, let's say you did put some liquidity into that melt AVAX pool, right? And you're making that 19% APR. Well, you can also take your receipt token, that LP token that you were given, and you can actually deposit it here into this melt AVAX liquidity staking farm.
So, and you can do this with any of the farms that are on here. This is just the one we chose, so this is the example I'm giving. So you stake it, you send them in here. You'll have however many liquidity tokens. You'll send it in here, and you'll additionally make 21% APR plus this bonus 745% APR, which is crazy. Now, when I see something like this, I typically immediately go and research the token. AVAX, I know what that is, but Melt, I don't know what that is. Or let's say I didn't know what that is. I would immediately go to CoinMarketCap, type in Melt, go to the website that it gives me, see what's up with it, see what it's used for, see if it even has any value. Maybe the reason they're giving you such a huge APR is because it's just junk token. It's not really worth anything, and they just want you to provide liquidity. Neither here nor there. Always do research on the tokens that you're doing, that you're investing in. So in this case, you would provide, as far as functionality of the website goes, you would just provide the LP token, enter the amount, it'll make you approve it, and then as time goes on, you just generate those sweet APRs. And you'll notice right here there's a harvest button, right? When you start generating rewards, which will happen in real time, you can harvest them at any time, which is essentially just sending them to your wallet. And look, it's going to cost you. So AVAX is pretty. One thing I love about it is that it's fast and cheap, right? So in this case, let's round it. So it's 0.01 AVAX, which I think AVAX right now, let's just estimate it's like 100. So it's going to be about $1, a little more than $1 to do this to harvest. So obviously you would wait for that to get to a sizable, a pretty decent amount where $1.24 isn't a big deal. That's neither here nor there. That's all these are for, with the exception of, so you basically in farms, I think of it this way: you take your receipt tokens and you can stake them for additional bonus rewards. And there is a farm here for XJoe, which is a receipt token, but that's not a liquidity receipt token. So this is the only one on here that I know of at the moment. And remember, it's because it's its native token, so it's a little special. So we'll come back to this guy in a little bit. But everything else on here, you're gonna find that it's these are liquidity farms. Okay, and you can gain, and some of them, they got no reward because they, they're just not. $229 in liquidity, right? So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, play around with it if you want. Understand your risks through impermanent loss and things of that nature. But if you are providing liquidity through the pools, it's not a bad idea to also stake the liquidity token. Next, we're going to skip lend and stake because we're going to come back to those pretty soon here. So Zap is just a quick way, and you'll notice pool here. There was a Zap button up here. It's the same thing. It's just a quick way to getting liquidity pool tokens. So essentially, you'll select a token that you have. Let's say the Joe. Let's say you have a bunch of Joe. You can send a bunch of Joe in and immediately get one of these liquidity tokens out. It'll just divide the Joe up into the Joe automatically up into 2 equal portions of whichever ones they are. So it'll basically perform a swap through trade of Joe to whatever the first token is. So let's say I was Joe here and I wanted to get some Joe USDT. It would basically go over to the trade. It would make a swap for half of it because you need some Joe. It would do half of it would stay Joe, and then half of it would go to this USDT stablecoin, and then it would then additionally take both of those in equal portions and create the LP token as if you did all of that hard work manually through here. So that's all it is. I tend to do the manual stuff because there is there is a warning here about slippage. If you don't know what slippage is, again, do a little research before you start diving into this, so that you understand and know how to keep yourself safe. All right, that's all I have to say about those. So next thing, let's look at staking. So staking is pretty interesting. I personally love staking. It's essentially taking your token or your cryptocurrency that you're planning on holding for a while, and it allows you to generate rewards, and additionally, it helps secure the network. It helps
all of these great things, and it's a very low risk way to generate additional revenue from your token. Because frankly, now in this case, with staking, you know, or rather, let me put it this way. So traditionally with staking, there's a couple different things that happen, right? When you stake, in some platforms, it locks the token for a time, right? For X amount of time. That could be a day, it could be 3 days, could be a week, could be up to a year. It really depends. And I always recommend before you stake your token, make sure you know what that lock-in period is. And then some tokens have zero lock-in. It's an instant. You can stake it and unstake it all you want all day. Not a big deal. All you have to do is pay the transaction fee. In this case, you know, you're doing since this is on a DEX. That you're paying the transaction fee to stake it and unstake it. But you know, on some platforms like Kraken, like for example, I have some Solana over there that I was staking. I could stake it and unstake it instantly, and I didn't have to pay a transaction fee. That being said, I'm a big fan of the instant stake and unstake type of situation. So in this particular case, so Joe, again, I was mentioning Joe's the native token to this site. For every swap on Joe, and you can read some of this stuff. You probably don't need me to read it for you, but there's a fee. This is where the staking rewards come from. There's a fee that's collected every time there's swaps done, and it's collected to XJoe. So XJoe, remember, when I stake, so if I put in a bunch of Joe here, and how do you get Joe? You go over here to trade. So let's say I have some AVAX, or maybe I have some stablecoin. I can just swap for some Joe. All right, I can put in this, so you can check it out. So I have 72. I wouldn't do all this because I obviously need some for my transaction and whatnot. But so I could put in 0.72 AVAX and get 28 Joe out, and it'll tell me how much AVAX per Joe. It says so over here as well. It'll tell me my minimum receive, the price impact, liquidity provider fee. So notice that I told you earlier, you know, where do those rewards come from? Well, it's right there. And then it tells you the route here. So what are they doing? How are they doing it? So anyway, you could do that swap, and that's how you get some Joe. Or you can get some Joe through, you know, your rewards, right? You can get Joe through liquidity farming, and then also in the lending rewards. So that's how you get it. Joe is equal to right now. Now this number changes, and I'll tell you how and why. Right now, each 1.18352 Joe is equal to 1x Joe. So it means x Joe is worth about 18.352% more than Joe. And the reason that is because of this compounding thing here. Okay, what's interesting about the way they do their rewards is if you are someone who resides in the United States, this should matter to you in the form of taxes. So normally when you get a staking reward through like a website, let's say Kraken, right? They give you they give you X amount. Let's say you get 0.15 Solana every week, right? And they just say, here you go, and it just gets added back to your staking, and it's restaked and whatnot. But that reward is a taxable event immediately, and it's taxable at the reward amount and the cost of the price of Solana at that moment in time. Okay, so that's important. So in this case, what they do with the rewards is the rewards are actually collected, and the value of X Joe goes up. So instead of you getting a kind of an interest payment, you're actually getting X Joe's just growing in value as a token, which means that each one of as the token value goes up, it's not a taxable event, right? It's just the ups and downs of a token. And then the taxable event is when you go to sell X Joe or convert it. That's when the taxable event happens. So it's nice because it's also not considered mind blank. Don't know where I was going with that. But anyway, so it's just a nice little tax thing to keep in mind. What else we got here? So anyway, if you stake Joe, you get a bunch of XJoe as a receipt. It's your receipt token, right? So when you go to unstake Joe, you actually put the XJoe back in, and you'll get the resulting Joe out. Okay, and it'll actually swap it in your wallet. If you don't have XJoe in your wallet anymore, you can't get your Joe out. So again, it's your receipt. Thank you. You provided me with a bunch of Joe. Here's the amount of XJoe that's equivalent to. There you go. So anyway, keep in mind this amount will go up based on time and the amount of fees and rewards that are collected. It goes up every 24 hours, and it'll most likely go up a 0.05% amount. But I guess it really depends. I don't watch it, so that's for you to do. If you don't have Joe in your wallet, here's where you can add it. You can also add it back here. Like if I went to here and typed in what I showed you earlier, you could add Joe, or I'm sorry, this is how you add Joe to your wallet. Here's where you would go to add XJoe to your wallet. So it shows up in your list of assets, right? I got it here. So here's Joe, XJoe. So anyway, when you stake this over time, this is the APR you get. So you earn 41.48%. So that's pretty. As far as risk goes, if you're planning on holding Joe anyway, because it is a token, it does go up and down in value, right? Just like anything. The risk in holding a token, right, is in the price appreciation or depreciation. So you buy 100 of it, and for $303, it goes up to $4. You made about $100, right? So you participate in that up. The risk is it could go down to $2 or go down to $1 or go to $0, whatever. And you participate in that down. So that's the risk, right? So with Joe, in this particular case with staking, the risk is that risk is the same. The fact that you can unstake and stake instantly is not a risk. But the nice part about it is you get this fat APR while you're doing the same thing as if you're holding. So if you're holding your tokens, just holding your tokens, and there's an avenue out there to stake them, right? Provided it's instant back and forth. If there's time delays, then you have something to think about, right? How long do you want to do this for? Do you want the ability to sell your tokens on a drop of a dime? If that's the case, then you don't want. Then once you add the time factor, the time locking factor to your staking, it introduces an additional risk, right? So I always, like I said, do your research on what you're doing as far as staking goes. In this thing in particular, instant. So super nice. You can check out the staking stats in here. I don't give it too much look. When you do stake through here, you'll see it popped in. You'll see your stake Joe in here, and if you have any XJoe, you'll see XJoe in here. Typically, now you'll notice if you staked your XJoe into a farm, so it's no longer in your wallet. So I mentioned over here this farm, right? Let's run through a quick scenario. I told you I'd give you some scenarios. Let's say I stake a bunch of Joe. Let's say I stake 100 Joe, and I get 118 XJoe back, right? Is that how that works, or would it be 18% less? Anyway, let's say I get about let's say I get a 10 XJoe out. Okay, doesn't matter. The numbers itself don't matter. You put a bunch of Joe in, you get the Joe XJoe receipt coin. They'll show up here. It'll show up here. I don't have any. I wish I had some to show you. I have it all locked in. But so what they mean by this here is you got some XJoe in your wallet. That's your receipt token, so you know you're staking. But now you can actually come over to the farm, and you can take your XJoe receipt token and make an additional 25.89% on that by staking that here, which is very nice. So you find yourself making 60-some% just on this, and and you're gonna get in as a reward, your APR is actually paid out in Joe. So, and I can harvest this at any time. Remember, I can click on this and it'll be X amount. I mean, this is nothing, right? At least when you compare it to Ethereum. You'll make a reward. You take the reward. You harvest the reward. You can come back over and you can restake that Joe. Get more X Joe. Come over to the farm. Stake that farm. You know, and then start increasing both of these at the same time. So that's one scenario in which you could do. So let's walk through the two scenarios so far. First scenario is you have some Joe. You want to hold it and you stake it, right? You stake it and you get this 41% APR. At any point you can unstake it, sell it if you want, or do whatever you want. Swap it for a different token. Next scenario, you could do that as well. You could stake the Joe, get the X Joe, and then you can come over to the farm and you can stake it in the farm. Now, this is also instant unstake. Okay, so you can unstake this at any time. Come back over once you have your X Joe put together, back in your wallet. Come back over and now you can unstake your Joe and get it all back, all your rewards, and sell it or do whatever you want. So two scenarios so far we've come up with. So now we're going to introduce one more thing. It's this lend. All right. So as of right now, we've kind of just dealt with, the native Joe token, and then also some liquidity stuff, right? Let's look at the lending. So this is BankerJoe, and you'll see some of the stuff I have going on up here, and hopefully it helps show you what I'm doing and give you an idea of what you can do. So just to explain it real quick, this is like your dashboard up here. Shows you the health of your, and there's always these bunch of these little info dots that you can click on to show you some information about what's happening. Like net APY, it shows you what your net APY is in accordance to what you have borrowed and what you have deposited. Same with your rewards APR, your borrow balance. It shows you your supply balance, how much you've given. And then this is kind of like the health, right? The health of this is your maximum you're allowed to borrow. This is your borrow limit. And when this gets to a certain percentage, it says here, and it gives you some ideas of what's considered very high and whatnot. Because you're at risk at the biggest risk with this is that you can be liquidated. But there are things you can do to avoid that. And let's start simple and then get more complex as we go. So, one of the things that drove me here, and you'll notice, we'll explain both of these sides here. So one of the things that drove me here is I had a bunch of Avalanche token AVAX that I was holding because I believe in the network, I believe in the technology, and I think it is going to be easily top 5 token in the near future here. It's going to be right up there with Solana. Which is another token that I believe in the technology and I believe in the ecosystem, and I've done a lot of research into what they do and why they do it better and what real problems they solve on the blockchain, in the blockchain world, and actually real world problems, right? Not a big deal. Point is, I had a bunch of AVAX that I was just holding, and the only thing I was gaining from it is that when AVAX went up, I made some money, but it's unrealized unless I sold it, and I wasn't planning on selling any of it, right? Or I lost some money if it went down, right? But again, unrealized because I wasn't planning on selling any of it. And I what did I just say earlier in the video? If you have some any amount of any token that you plan on holding for a while, stake it. Especially if it's instant. So this is where I ran into the problem. I really wanted to provide a solution for. Oops, give me a second. I'm just gonna turn off my speakers here so we don't get interrupted constantly. So I really wanted to provide a solution to make some extra dough off of that, off of my AVAX. Normally I would stake it. But in the case of AVAX, when I looked at how to stake it, I would have to download the native token or the native wallet, Avalanche wallet, which is fine. The graphical user interface, the GUI for it, is not the most user friendly, but someone like me was able to figure it out, not a problem. But more basic beginner users would struggle, I think, without some some detailed walkthroughs, and I might do that for people in the future here. But in this case, you could stake it through their native wallet, and the minimum you could stake is 25 AVAX. So first off, that's quite the barrier to entry, right? At current prices, 120. I'm estimating. I'm not sure what it's going for right at this second. 124 times 25. You're looking at $3,000, and some people just don't got that. They're starting out, especially in the crypto world, right? Like we're putting our pennies, we're putting our allowances and things like that into this, and we're not exactly amassed $3,000 worth of AVAX. So now I was lucky enough, I did have it if I wanted to, and that's just to delegate it, right? So that's me giving my 25 to a node, or delegating my 25 AVAX to somebody so that they can add it to their pool, and then I make a reward on it. And it's on a whole different level if you want to run your own node. So that being said, my problem with it is that in this particular case, and remember I told you to do your research, it's time locked, and the reward that you get, the APR that you get, or APOI you get, is based on how long you lock your AVAX into the network, into the staking pool. And that really turns me off. I understand why they do it, and I understand the allure of, the APY, because I think at max, over when I was doing it a few weeks ago, I could stake it. You could stake it for as little as, I think it was at that point 2 weeks, maybe a month, and as far along as a year. And the amount of percentage you would make actually grows over that time. So if I did it for the full year, I could make like the highest percent I could get to was like 11% APY, and then like the lowest is, it was practically nothing, right? And that's a huge turnoff. And then on top of that, you run the risks of, okay, are you actually going to get your rewards? Because if you give it to there's all kinds of risks of actually providing you're delegating your tokens as a stake. So I wasn't into that. I'm not huge into the time locked rewards unless the reward is extremely lucrative. And I have yet to find that. So I wanted to find a new method, and this is the method I found. So let's say I have a bunch of AVAX. Okay, so let's click on here on this side here. You can see the deposit. So what this is basically saying, you can take any one of these tokens that they currently have on the site, and you'll notice XJoe is here as well, and you can provide it as a deposit, and which will allow people to borrow. Okay, so what does that mean? So I let's say I have some AVAX, for example, and I did. I could easily just deposit my AVAX into this, similar to staking, but not, as far as rewards go, what it's doing on the back end is very different, right? So I can provide my AVAX here, and let's click on this, and I make a reward just for holding it in here. So in this case, I deposited 71 AVAX tokens, okay? I will get first off, I'll get a deposit APY. This is always paid out in the token, and you can click these little info buttons to get an idea here if you ever forget any of this information. But so I'll get 6.19% of this back over the year in AVAX, in my Avalanche token. And then additionally, I also get 3.61% of it back in the native Joe token, which then I could stake, or I could even just swap it for AVAX and put it back into this, right? So that's pretty nice. So altogether, though, it's about a 9, almost 10% yearly gain just for holding AVAX. And I still, like, the AVAX is mine. I can deposit it as much as I want, but then I can redeem it. Like, so you can see instant, like right now, I can withdraw all of my AVAX. I'm not going to because of what I have going on here, but I can withdraw this instantly, and it'll just come out, and it's mine again. So this is kind of a no-brainer for me, right? I get to hold my AVAX, So as it goes up, I'm participating in the upside. As it goes down, naturally, you participate in the downside, just the same as if I was holding normally. But I'm making a reward here, based on, over time. And the biggest thing is, remember, I get to keep my AVAX. And this was quite a lot of money for me, right? So I added 71, and I think I forget what that comes out to. So let's just take a look. 12405 times, let's say it's 124 right now. So it was $8,000, almost $9,000, right? And the thing about this is, I'm like, okay, I want to make 10% on this. So over the year, I'll make about $800, right? In AVAX tokens and Joe tokens total, which I can collect and re-put back in, or use it for something else. So just remember, I'm going to keep this to the side here. So just remember this, okay? So that's the first scenario, right? You can have any one of these tokens over here, and just from holding them, and keep that in mind. These are stable coins right here, right? 1, 2, 3, MIM, Magic Internet Money, DAI, Tether, USDC coin, or USDC. These are all stable coins. So if you're holding these, I mean, the risk is, with most of these tokens, is that they go up or down in price. These tokens traditionally don't. Now, can one of these stable coins become unpegged? Yes. The risk is a lot lower than, the price volatility of these other ones, right? But you could stick, $1,000 of USDC in here and make over 10% rewards over the year, which, honestly, if you think about our financial system now, it's just not possible in our current, in regular finance, right? So anyway, and that's just simple. That's the first way. That's scenario. We'll call it 3 because we did 1 and 2 earlier. Okay, so that's scenario 3 with making money here. So what we want here is, okay, so we have a way to now make sweet APYs on any of these tokens. And let's look over here with the borrowed side and see what's going on over here, and then we'll explain how we can kind of do a more complex strategy. So this is essentially pretty simple, right? You see these minus APYs here? That's your interest rate. Okay, if I come over here and I tried to borrow some AVAX, some wrap ether, one of these stable coins or something like that, I'm going to get I'm going to be charged over time, over the year, 13.91% APY, and that's why it's minus. And the interesting thing about utilizing this is this rewards APR is actually a reward you get for borrowing from using their liquidity, using their website, right? So they're gonna, and this is traditionally paid out in Joe, or okay, so which is the native token, something they can easily that they generate. So let's just click on one here. Let's say I tried to borrow. We're talking about AVAX, so let's click on AVAX. So in this case, I can borrow AVAX at minus 13.9, and so and it's the yield is, the interest yielded is compounded daily, and it's in the form of AVAX. The rewards APR, you click on it to see what it is, right? It comes because there are some times when you could actually generate AVAX rewards, but none of these right now have it. Most of the time, you're going to see that you're going to get paid out in Joe, which, again, like I said, you can either stake it or trade it into, swap it into AVAX or whatever token you really want on the network. So that's what this side is, and you can borrow and repay. Okay, so pretty simple stuff. Gives you borrowing limits, and just remember, like, this is in AVAX tokens. So if I typed in like 34, it 90%, whatever the case may be here, it's in AVAX. Same thing, when you borrow of a certain currency or token, you got to repay it in that token. Remember that. So anyway, where am I going with all this? So I want to kind of show you how some of this might make a little more sense, right? So in one scenario, in scenario 3, we said, hey, we got some AVAX.
Let's just make some yield. Cool. Let's farm some yield. We're just a humble farmer making our money. I had $8,819 that I wanted to continue to participate in AVAX. However, I didn't want to just lock this money up. Like, I wanted to do more with it. And so think about this scenario. So the nice thing about this, so there's little toggles here. When you deposit any type of token into one of these pools, this a little switch will become active to use it also as collateral. So what that'll do is, and we'll click on AVAX here to see what happens, because this is what I did. So there's a collateral factor in here, okay, saying 75%. So basically that's saying is that of my AVAX, 100% of my AVAX, I can use 75% of it. I can borrow up to 75% of it using my collateral as, using AVAX as my collateral. That's what I mean. So if I put in $1,000 of AVAX, I can borrow up to $750 worth of whatever. It doesn't have to be AVAX. It can be any one of these tokens that they have here. And then that $750 will be subject to these terms. Whatever interest here, whatever rewards here. Okay. So keep that in mind. So what I ended up doing is I wanted to take this money. So here's the money I had. So, and I said the collateral factor was 75%. So let's times this by 75%. So I could borrow up to initially $6,614. Now, that being said, that's a very risky play, right? Because as the price of AVAX goes up and down, so does your collateral, right? Value of your collateral. So it's nice when it goes up, right? The price of AVAX goes up, my collateral actually goes up, and life's ducky. But the problem is the risk of it going down. And what that means is if you were to borrow your max amount, 6,614, you run into some risks here, okay? So as the price of, let's open up another calculator here. 8,819. I should have done some rounder numbers, but we're in it. So let's say the price of this goes down, right? So this is 75% right now, right? And keep in mind, when you click on the borrow limit here, right, it told you that over 80% is considered very high and caution should be taken through appropriate risk management, such as deleveraging your position. Why? Because you run the risk of, there's this thing called liquidation, which you don't want to run into. So the way this lending program works, and a lot of lending programs work right now, is that you're getting over collateralized loans, and it's to protect the borrower, essentially. So or the lender. I'm sorry, it's to protect the lender. And the reason that is, so if I deposit, it just means that as much as for every 75 cents that's lent out, there's $1 to cover it, right? At least in the case of AVAX here. So what happens here? Whoops, close Xbox. What happens here is, let's say this goes down. I don't know, a couple percent. So let's say we lose, and actually this happened pretty recently. Let's say we lose $1,000 off the top, right? Or maybe like $500. Simple math, right? 8819.38. Let's say it goes down 0.6%. So let's say we lose $529, okay? Minus 529.16. Yeah. So now our collateral, our supplied amount value is this amount, right? Because we subtracted by 6%. So let's put this under here so we don't lose it. So what does that mean for our health of our borrow? So if we borrowed our maximum of 75% at 6,614, right? Now actually 29022 times, well, so what's this times by 75? So this is actually now our new maximum. So that means that this amount has gone 8290.22. So now we're actually borrowing almost 80% of our, and this is just from a 6% drop. And we both know in crypto, it gets kind of crazy. 6% drop's kind of nothing in a day sometimes. And the thing about it is, after a certain point, you will be liquidated. Meaning they will sell your supply to pay back your borrow. Okay, and that's to protect that's to make sure that none of the money is actually that the lenders are not losing any money, right? It's to protect them. That's why there's no background check or anything like this, right? To do these things. These are trustless. You don't need to trust anybody. You just need to know that on the contract at a certain point, and you're like, okay, well, what's that point? So in my case here, I've supplied, now this is including my AVAX, my MIM, and my XJoe, okay? So I've supplied thus far 12,000 US dollars worth of all of those things, okay? And I have right now almost $4,000 borrowed, okay? So I'm at a 48.43% chance health, like my of my borrow limit, right? And they do a nice thing here. I can click on my AVAX and I can see what the price AVAX would actually need to get to in order for my position to be liquidated. 41, I feel pretty safe with that, to be honest with you. But the point, the bigger point here is it's low enough for me to be able to react if the market starts going really, really south. So anyway, what's the point of all this, right? Why would I borrow against it, right? So the point is, I can stick my AVAX in here or any of these other tokens and get a certain amount of collateral back, right? I can take as much or as little of this as I want and borrow from it. So let's say I borrow USDT, which is actually what I did. So I ended up borrowing, what was it? Almost $3,000, for almost $4,000 worth of USDT. What did I do with that, right? Because I'm getting charged 13%, and it's more like 10%, right? Because you're gaining this 3.76 back in rewards. So I'm being charged 10%. What did I do with that? Well, I'll tell you what I did. I took that USDT and I went over here and I traded it. I said, okay, I have USDT, right? Whoops. And what did I trade it for? Well, I could have went here and I could have said, okay, let's look at some of these APYs, right? I could have taken $4,000 and put it into, or heck, I could have just taken the USDT. I'm at 10%, right? I could have just deposited back into my deposits here and came out on top, almost 1%, right? And the nice thing about doing that is, well, let's stick with the rewards. I'll tell you what that does to your. You always got to remember and focus on what happens then to your collateral, right? And what happens to the amount that you have in your collateral. But brass tacks wise, I could come out on top on this, right? Just by doing that, I could make an additional 1%, just by borrowing and putting it back in. Did I do that? No, because there's better options. I could have borrowed this, so you don't have to borrow the one that let's say you want MIM, but I mean that's really expensive, to be honest. You can borrow USDT and just trade it. Come over here, grab yourself some USDT. Whatever it is that you ended up getting out of it, just trade for some MIM. Just swap it. Why not? And then you avoid having this crazy these potentially crazy APYs. And I always recommend borrowing things that have high liquidity, because it's harder to the percentages that the percent APYs for the borrowing and the rewards tend to not fluctuate, right? Because it takes a lot to make them fluctuate. Whereas this, where it only has $2 million worth of liquidity, these percentages tend to fluctuate extremely in some cases, depending on the amount of liquidity available. Oh, here, let's change this to USD. So some people don't notice here the deposits and the borrows in these columns, and this is just an idea here to give you an idea as to what liquidity is and how many deposits have been made. I always flip it to USD because these are in the tokens, right? So it's 3,464,000 deposits in AVAX tokens. So anyway, just flip to USD if you want to know what the US dollar amount is. So anyway, back to what we were talking about. I could borrow USDT, and then I could do something neat here. I could say, okay, well, I'm being charged 10%. How about instead I swap it, go back to that trade, I swap it for a bunch of MIM, and then I put it in here and make 19%. Now all of a sudden, I'm coming out 9% on top. You starting to see what's going on here? Or now this is what I did. This is a pretty interesting thing. I could borrow USDT, right? $4,000 of it. Come over here. USDT. Swap it for Joe. Now we're gonna start combining some stuff. So we're getting a little more complex, right? Swap it for Joe. Get $4,000 worth of Joe. Come over to stake. Stake $4,000 worth of Joe. I get a certain amount of X Joe. So that $4,000 worth of Joe is going to bring me an additional 41% APR, which I know if you do simple math, is a lot more than minus 10. Worth it. So I got that 41% locked in. Now I got a bunch of X Joe in my wallet. What am I going to do with that? Well, two things. I could come over here. I could put it in this liquidity pool, make another 25% on it, or what I actually did, come over here and stick it deposit it as a lending balance, or into the lending side. I make a 0 APY, but 31% rewards, okay, on the stake Joe, on the extra receipt, and additionally, okay, this adds to my borrow supply, which then decreases my percent here until I get liquefied, right? Or liquefied. You see how this is kind of stacking here. Now I'm making 30, almost 70 some percent on top of this this measly 10%, right? So I'm making 70% on. At this point, I mean, it was, I think when I borrowed, I click on if you click on, I don't think I shared it to you, manage your portfolio, it gives you kind of a breakdown of what you got going on. So, okay, I borrowed, almost $4,000 worth of USDT. And then I just traded it for Joe, staked the Joe, come back over, deposited as X Joe, the same amount, right? So I deposited 821 Joe, X Joe, which is worth a total value of $2,930 right at the moment, because Joe actually went down significantly since I deposited it, right? Because I purchased it around this amount. But the point is, it also then drove down the amount that the price at which I would get liquidated, because I have more collateral. I had more supply, and essentially more collateral. So it also lessened the risk available. And then what I end up doing is, as I get rewards here, and this is generated in real time. We might even see it tick once or twice while we're sitting here. Oh, there, you saw the AVAX. So I claim it as I go, okay? And then I just pay off my balance. Okay, and I start, and then I continue to move the bar down until I get to a certain point where I feel super safe, and that'll be around like 25%. And then I'll borrow back again, and I'll do the same damn thing. Why? Because this is how we do something called 9-9, where we are essentially adding collateral, or adding a balance to depositing collateral, borrowing against it, depositing collateral to increase your amount of collateral, borrowing against it, and just doing this back and forth type of thing.
In this case, you can make some pretty sweet gains. So you can see as it got more complex, the gains actually also multiplied. So now I'm making percentages based on $12,000 rather than the $8,000 that I had initially. So that's one way to do things. There's a difference. There's different stuff you can combine this with. Other websites, anything, because anything that connects to your AVAX wallet, you can kind of combine different strategies with. Like for example, there's this place called Abracadabra Money, and we're not going to get into this, but it connects to the Avalanche wallet, and you can kind of do the same thing here. You can deposit certain things here, certain tokens, and use them as collateral. And then you can borrow MIM against it. So in this case, and here's some like XJoe. So if I had some XJoe right now, I could deposit it into here, and then I could borrow out, and it'll give you the same statistics that you were seeing before. And I'd borrow MIM. And what can I do with that MIM? Well, I can go to Trader Joe, I can take the MIM, I can swap it for Joe, and then I can do it again. I can stake Joe, get more XJoe, come back here, throw more in the collateral, and then borrow more MIM if I want. Or I could just let it be and just accept the, just keep my risk there at that point. So it really is your risk tolerance and just understanding, getting yourself in a good position that you're not borrowing a lot. For beginners, I tell people, borrow around 15, 20%, 25 max, against your token. And that will allow you plenty of time to react if the market starts going south, right? Because that's the idea. Like that'll give you time to either, you can sell back. You can. So what would I do here? Let's look at a scenario like where I'm at. Let's say AVAX started tanking. Okay. AVAX started tanking and it's going down, and it's getting closer to my liquidation price. Let's say it's down 50%. It'd be crazy, right? But let's say it does. Probably took a day or two to get there, maybe 3 days if it's depending on how steep the drop, right? It would be nuts. But at the same time, I have enough time to react to it. I could come in here, I could redeem some of my stable coins, or I can redeem some of my AVAX and just pay back my borrow balance, right? Or I could take funds from elsewhere and just add additional. I could take funds from my AVAX. Like I could add additional AVAX to my wallet. Let's like from my bank account or something of that nature, and pay back the borrow balance. Or I could take that, and if I think that it's going to bounce back, I could just add additional supply in any of these tokens to kind of push this ratio, your loan to value ratio down. As you push that down, the healthier the lower your liquidation price will be. I think that wraps up this particular video. Again, it gives you a good idea as to the different types of things and strategies. And as you get more complex, more complex the risk, more complex the rewards, but it can be worth it. And I found it to be very worth it. A couple things to note here, whenever you're borrowing and you're depositing, some things I've run into just as a quick side note. Just remember that both sides of these tokens, like, so if you're, let's look at it from this situation. If you deposit AVAX and you borrow AVAX, that means that as AVAX goes down, it goes down on both sides. So this doesn't change much, right? Your percentage, your ratio of how much you've deposited to how much you have borrowed will stay the same, because the value of the token goes, fluctuates at the same rate. What I tend to do, the reason I tend to borrow on stable coins is because, at least on the borrow side, that can't go up and down in value. So it's only my AVAX that can go up and down in value, right? And so my ratio will increase and decrease based on the AVAX value. So I keep an eye on that, right? However, and vice versa. Like if you put in a stable coin in your deposits, okay, and then you borrowed against, let's say, AVAX. The only thing that could on the borrow side, the only thing that can alter your loan to value ratio is the ups and down of AVAX or whichever token that you decided to borrow. So the least risky way is to deposit stablecoin and borrow stablecoin, because why? They don't really go anywhere. They don't go anywhere, right? So neither one's going to fluctuate, so they're not going to move, and it's just whatever you have is what you have, unless something, God forbid, gets unpegged, and you just collect the rewards that are just collecting. The second most least risky way is to have one side be a token and the other side, which doesn't matter which, be the stable coin. The most risky you can do. I'm sorry. Back up then. Another one that is kind of on the least risky side, right, is if you're depositing and borrowing the same token, right, because they go up and down at the same rate. It's the same as if you were borrowing and depositing a stable coin. But you can do any stablecoin, right? I could do USDC and borrow out USDT. So stablecoin to stablecoin, least risky. Same token to same token, deposit borrow, the next least risky. But we're getting riskier as we go up, right? The next one is then having a value-driven token on either side, and then borrowing or depositing a stablecoin, right? So it only has one of them being able to fluctuate. The most risky is having two different value shifting tokens on either side, right? So let's take a look at this, right? So if let's say we have AVAX on this side and we have wrapped Ethereum on this side, right? If AVAX goes up and Ethereum goes up, cool. They slide in the same direction, so it's great. So but they'll go up by different quantities, right? So if Ethereum goes, but either way, as long as they go up, you're in the green. You're good to go. But if, let's say, they both go down, again, your loan to value ratio is most likely going to stay pretty similar, unless the borrow side goes down much faster or by more quantity than your deposit side, right? Then that's bad news bears, and you can see how this is kind of affecting the loan to value ratio, right? And then let's say, though, in this case, let's say the borrow side ends up starting to grow in value, okay, and then the deposit side starts to lose value, okay. Now all of a sudden your loan to value ratio is growing exponentially, okay, and it's getting further and further apart. Your collateral amount is going lower and lower, and the amount that the value of what you borrowed just got higher, right? So when this happens, you run some crazy risk of something happening. So if this one jumps 30% up and this one goes down 30%, that's a 60%. You're going to get liquidated, right? That's the risk you run by doing different types of tokens. So keep that in mind when you're setting up your positions, and try to consider what risk you can take on, and what type of risk you're willing to, risk reward ratio. In these cases, I recommend starting simple and working your way into it and seeing how things work. That's why I say start small. And I also recommend don't do that last thing that I just said, the most risky thing, especially if you're just starting out. The idea is to make money. And I definitely consistently make money. We're not trying to make our bags in one blow. If that's what you're here for, I'll tell you, just go find yourself some low cap coins. You're actually running right around the same amount of risk, and you're better off just gambling over there, right? But in this particular case, like if you're starting out, start with the simple strategy. Just deposit. Next, maybe borrow up to 15%, and then do something with it. So borrow stable coin, or borrow against it. So the reason I don't do AVAX traditionally is because the borrow APY and the rewards APY is usually not very lucrative. In this case, it actually shifted so that it is pretty good. But I still like to borrow against, like I like to do, my level of risk is borrow or deposit a token, in this case AVAX, and I borrow a stablecoin, because then I just watch one side of it, right? And it's not the borrow side, because I don't want to repay. I don't want my borrow amount to increase in value. It'd be great if it decreased in value, but the chances that, like, I just don't want to. I'd rather only risk the amount that the value of the token I deposited going up and down than actually the amount I owe going up or down, but most likely potentially going up. Right, we're in crypto because crypto goes up to the moon. Anyway, I think that's it for this video. We wrapped it up. Some pretty quick and simple stuff. Shoot me some comments. If you like what I have here, shoot me a like. I would appreciate it. Subscribe if you like. If you want to see more, I'm going to release more how-to videos and whatnot on a couple different things. I'm probably going to do a few on Solana, more stuff on the Avalanche network and in their ecosystem. I'm doing something very similar in Solana on the Solend website. And I know a lot of videos out there. They tell you about it. They tell you about this, yield farming and 9-9, right? You might have heard some of these terms if you've been on like Reddit and some of these other sites that talk about it. But a few people show you how to do it, right? And I want to show you how to do it. And I'm frankly I'm using my real wallet, and I'll show you exactly what I'm into. And how I'm doing it and why I'm doing it, and try to explain it as best I can. Please leave some comments so I know what to explain better, or and maybe some of the things to add in the future. And I'll try to go back and update some of these videos. All right, take it easy.